wherever you are, and welcome to Let's Play Games. I'm John McFarland, Adult Services Librarian for Nashville Public Libraries, and I hope you'll join me in learning or rediscovering some common games and some uncommon games. This time, we're going to cover one of my favorite word games. I'm sure you've gotten used to the idea of taking certain letters and finding out what words you can make out of it. Well, there's a way to put points on it, and there's a way to show, even if you don't have a large vocabulary, you can still rack up lots of points. That's going to be Scrabble. Let's get stuck in. So, before we get into anything else, I want to show you what's in an average box of Scrabble. It's usually pretty compact, and it's got room for 2 to 4 players. A lot of the examples today, we're just going to have 2-player combinations. So we've got 4, let me squeeze these out, of our tile racks. We can fit a couple pieces on here. It's always the last one that becomes the more complex one, I promise you. But all 4 of these. And then I'm going to put this off to the side for a second, and I can show you the board. So the board is usually colored in some way. We have one of the special edition whiteboards here, but you can see it pretty clearly that there is an organized X here, all of them with various descriptions, which we'll get to in a minute. We're going to have a bag that usually sutures up that has more than enough of these tiles, each of them with a letter. So we've got a letter and a number right under it that is worth a specific point value. And the point value is determined by how common these letters are showing up within this bag. Out of 100 pieces, you can actually see it right over here. There's usually a letter distribution marker. So it tells us that A occurs 9 times, O occurs 8 times, S occurs only 4 times, E has plenty going on with 12 times. But Q, J, X, Z, they only have 1, but they're also worth a few more points. There are also a couple of blanks on here that can be used as a placeholder letter. They're not worth any points, but they can help you fill out a word should you need it. So let's go ahead and look at the board here. Now there are places on the board that are a little more appealing if you're trying to play a shorter or longer word. There are double word scores and triple word scores, and they will, as obvious, will double the total amount of points that you score on a specific word. Triple the amount. You also have double and triple letter scores placed pretty strategically along the board itself. So let's say, for the sake of conversation, I'll reopen this bag. We've got A on a triple letter. That means instead of being worth just 1 point, it's now worth 3 points. So we're going to pull out a couple random pieces, try and make a random word here super fast. So we're going to do the word sun. And notice all 3 of these have 1 point each. But if I place them on a double word score, that's going to be 1, 2, 3 times 2, 6. But let's say I place it up here on the triple letter score. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can play words on this board. We'll cover exactly how letters are doled out here in a second, but you can cover plenty of space, and part of this game is about being strategic of the size of the words you play. You don't have to have the largest vocabulary to win this game. All you have to do is play on the board as strategically as possible. So we've also got a couple more things here. We've got a little bit of a timekeeper. This does about 3 minutes. So if you wanted to play on a time basis, you can have a maximum of 3 minutes per turn. And we've also got here a small little scorekeeping sheet, which covers basically a maximum of 20 rounds. I haven't seen games last longer than that. Sometimes they can. We've also got some marking, and also there's rules in here should you need a reminder. So let's go ahead and get started setting up this game. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna place this off to the side for the moment, and we're gonna play this as though there are only 2 players. So we're gonna put one here, one here, and put these 2 off to the side. And what you're gonna do is you have to decide who goes first. So you're gonna shake, and each player is going to pull out 1 piece each. And the person who goes first is the person who is closer to the letter A. So we have the person on the left had E, person on the right had H. So our left player will be the one that goes first. You put this back into the bag. And now you are going to draw 7 tiles and place them on the board like so. And while you're doing this, just make sure it's right side up, unless you really want to place it upside down. And you want to see if you recognize some common words as you start playing it. So I've got 3 I's, an R, a T, a Z, and a U. Over here we've got P, T, 2 W's. I would really like a vowel here. Okay, there we go. We've got a U, we've got an H, and we've got an I. Whew, I was starting to get worried there. So now we're gonna place this bag off to the side. You can just keep it unsutured for now. And what we're going to do is the first person is going to have the ability to go first, but they're gonna have to play right at the center to start us off. More on that in a moment, because I gotta tell you about the history of this game. So there's a fascinating history behind this game. It started with Alfred Mosher Butts, an architect who was out of work in the midst of the Great Depression. In between looking for jobs, he took to analyzing common games for their analytical properties. So he started looking at dice and bingo for their numerical content. He started looking at chess and checkers to analyze their movesets. And he came to the conclusion that word games, or anagram style games, didn't have a quantitative system. So he started to work on this project, the initial version being called Lexico, and it was developed in the late 1930s. In early 1940s, it became crisscross words, and he continued to refine this game over time. More on what happened next in a minute. So now that we've got our dealing out of 7 pieces each, we've got 100 minus 14, so 86 pieces left in here to go. As I mentioned, the person on the left is the person who goes first. So now what you're going to want to do is start taking a look at these letters and figure out where you might want to go. Z, as I mentioned before, since it's rather uncommon, it has the highest point count in the game at 10. But that usually means that it's a little harder to figure out where exactly to play this. Because I could do, if I had an E here, I could play tire with that. But now you've got to figure out what are valid words. So you've got some limitations as to what words could possibly work. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be rather simple and play Z you. You think surely that's not a word, but it is. It describes a mythological being that's actually more of like a flighted bird. So that counts. And I'm more than happy to see that Z on the board. I'm more than happy to see that away from my hand because it's played. I have played games before where the Z has stayed on my tile rack the entire game. So we need to go ahead and count these points. Now, let me actually go ahead and grab the little score sheet here. And we are gonna mark for, I'm just gonna mark L and R. It's the left player and the right player. So here we've got 10, and it is on a red square. So the person who goes first actually has to play on the center square. And because it's marked as red, it counts for double word. So that's another reason why I'm more than ready to just go ahead and use that. We've also got a blank space here, so that's 10, 11, and because of that double word, we've got 22. It's not a bad way. Once you're done with that, you're gonna pick up 2 more. Another R, that's not very helpful. And as the person on the right begins their play, you can start messing around with the pieces, see what works. So let's see. Now we've got the problem that we have to play off of the letters that have already been played. So by using a 2-letter, I have to go somewhere between over here to go off of the ZU, go off of the U one direction, go off the Z in one direction. What I also can do is I can play along the top, along the bottom, on the side. The only rule here is that all of the combinations must equal another word. So let's say, for the sake of conversation, I wanted to play hut, H-U-T. That is a valid play. Now, let's say I wanted to play, we're gonna do P-I-T right here. We've got to make sure that is a valid word, I-Z, not I-S, and to, is that a valid word? Now, let's say I'm the person on the left and I don't believe it's a valid word, which happens. You've got to make sure before you even start the game and agree on a dictionary. And let's say I want a challenge here and I say that to is not a word. We're going to go ahead and move here. Zoom through this real quick. To is an abbreviation. Abbreviations are not fair game. So it's not a valid word. So I'm not gonna even challenge the other one. If a person wanted to challenge that word, what you'd have to do is take all those letters back up and you'd lose your turn. So you've got to make sure that you play a word that's not going to be challenged. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play that hut that I talked about. And notice I'm kind of boxing myself into a corner here. Now we've got 4 points for the H, 1 for the U, and 1 for the T. I've got a double letter on the H, so instead of 4, that becomes 8. For the U, there's no more bonuses to play. For the T, double letter, that's 2. So we've got 8, 9, 10, 11. So that is, for the right side player, 11 points. So what you're going to start doing is alternating back and forth. And I picked up a Y and I picked up an A, and it will revert back to the left-sided player. And this entire game is alternating back and forth to see who can create the best possible words in the best possible spots for the best possible number of points. So I'm going to take a step back for a second, and I want to give you a little more history into the way this game developed into the modern form it is today. a little more about how the game continued to develop. Now, part of the letter distribution that you see here on the board, it came from, allegedly, analyzing the front pages of the New York Times newspaper. And he went and saw how often a letter would occur on that front page, and used that with mathematical distribution, which more on that soon enough, and created the point scheme that we're familiar with. So since we know that Q and J don't appear super often in words, that led him to create the rarity of the point scheme that we have today. Later on in the 40s, he met James Bruno, who helped manufacture games. And he helped him refine the process, helped him figure out the layout of the board and the rules of the board, and it continued to develop after changing the name to Scrabble. More in a second. So because this game can take about 30 to 40 minutes sometimes, what we're going to do, a little different this time, is we're going to speed it up a little bit so you can see an entire game played through. You'll see what pieces I draw, and I'll make sure to tell you what's going on as best as possible. So, without further ado, now we've got S to play here. Is word. I'm gonna challenge it here just to see. It counts as a word. So NE, born, used before the original name of a man who has changed his name or assumed a synonym. So similar to the NEE, ne, in French. It counts. Which means we get vase right here. Double letter. 4 becomes 8, 9, 10, 11. As becomes 2, so 13, and E becomes 15. So we kind of squeezed it in there, but we got 15 points off of that word. So I'm not a huge fan of the letters that I've got available right now. You do have the option at the expense of losing your turn and marking it 0, which I'm going to go ahead and do here, and exchanging all of your letters, hoping to get a little more. So we're going to do that, and then I'm going to go ahead and draw some more, and then we'll get back started. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And of course, I drew the Q again. Oh my God. Wow, that was no help. So we're gonna move back over to here. All right, so this is a good place to stop and talk about how a game ends. Either you run out of pieces, you mutually agree there's nowhere to go left on the board. We're gonna play one more word here, F-A-T, fault. That's gonna be worth 12 points right there. And let's say you agree to stop there. What you would do is you would subtract the number of points that are left on your rack. So that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 11 in total. So you subtract 11 from that total. Another reason why you want to play that Q as fast as possible. But one last thing before we go. A little more about how the game became as popular as it is today. Mr. Butts and Mr. Bruno set about creating demonstration versions of this game in order to better market it to board game companies. What they did was they actually hand-carved and stamped the pieces on the board for the letters before sending them off for manufacturing. With him and some friends, they used an abandoned schoolhouse in order to continue working at this at the pace of 12 sets every hour. They made about 2,400 sets in the year 1949, and it was a losing venture. But their big break came thanks to a vacation. The president of Macy's stores played this game on vacation and wondered why he couldn't find it in any sort of store. He contacted those who developed the game and immediately ordered a large number and actually required rationing to stores because of how quickly the game started selling out. So it was that lucky break that helped bring this game into your home. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for tuning in. Next time, we're going to discover some more advanced strategies, some more complex ways to play, and some unique ways in which you can have more fun with the game. You can always check our website for more NPL Universe programming. See you next time.